to the Bible Sense, where we explore timeless wisdom for modern living. If you like what you hear, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon.
You know, when we think about the story of the Bible, we usually focus on two main groups of characters, right? God and humanity. But what if I told you there's this whole other cast of characters working behind the scenes? A hidden world of spiritual beings. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and explore this really misunderstood part of the biblical story. So let's just start with the word cherub. Seriously, what's the very first image that pops in your head when you hear that? For most of us, I'm betting it's probably something like this. Is it this little guy? A chubby, cute little baby with tiny wings, maybe floating around on a cloud holding a harp? Yeah, that's the image we see all over the place, in art, in pop culture. But the biblical authors, well, they had something way different in mind. What if I told you it was actually more like this? The Bible describes cherubim, or in the original Hebrew, cheruvim, as these super intimidating hybrid creatures, like a mashup of different animals, designed to be totally awe-inspiring and honestly even a little scary. A far, far cry from a cute little baby angel. And hey, while we're busting myths, here's a big one for you. In the Bible, angels, the spiritual messengers, are never actually described as having wings. Isn't that wild? The winged beings are the cherubim and other creatures hanging out in God's throne room. Angels, on the other hand, look so human that they're often mistaken for, well, just regular people. So all this brings us to a really foundational idea. The world of the Bible is populated by a lot more than just God and humans. There's this whole spiritual realm out there, and the biblical authors actually have a specific category for all of its inhabitants. And that category is Elohim. Now, this Hebrew word isn't a name, it's a title. Think of it like a job description for any being that belongs to that spiritual, heavenly realm. It can mean angels, it can mean gods with a lowercase g, or it can even refer to God with a capital G. It really all depends on the context. Here's an easy way to think about it. The word mom is a general title, right? It could refer to millions of people. But if you're talking to your siblings and you say, hey, we need to get a gift from mom, they know exactly which one you mean. That general title becomes a specific name because of the context. And that's exactly how the biblical writers used the word Elohim. They believed that out of all the spiritual beings, there is one Elohim, whose personal name is Yahweh, who is in a category all by himself. He's the creator and the ruler over all the other Elohim. And that is biblical monotheism, one supreme being reigning over a whole council of spiritual ones. So, what do all these other Elohim do? Well, the Bible often calls them the divine council or the heavenly host. The best way to think of them is like God's staff team created to partner with him in overseeing all of creation. And just like any team, they have different jobs and different roles. So let's break down the two most famous types of Elohim. On one hand, you have the cherubim, these wild, hybrid animal mashups with wings whose main job is to guard sacred space. Then you have angels. They're human-like, no wings, and they act as messengers and agents for God here on earth. Totally different roles. The role of the cherubim is just incredibly symbolic. We first meet them guarding the way back into the Garden of Eden, which was the place where heaven and earth overlapped. They were also carved into the Ark of the Covenant, forming a kind of symbolic footstool for God's throne. And their crazy hybrid appearance, it represents all of animal kind, symbolically giving praise back to its creator. Angels, though, have a totally different job. In fact, the word angel just means messenger. That's their whole deal. They are God's ambassadors, sent to earth to deliver messages or carry out missions, like busting Peter out of prison. And get this, even their names, like Gabriel, which means God is my power, or Michael, who is like God, are designed to point all the credit and glory back to God, never to themselves. But this heavenly staff team isn't without its drama, not at all. A central plot line that's woven through the entire Bible is the story of a cosmic conflict, a rebellion that happens within the spiritual realm that has massive consequences for all of humanity. And right at the heart of this conflict is a figure we often misunderstand. See, Satan isn't a personal name in the Bible, it's a title. In Hebrew, it's ha-Satan, which literally means the Satan or the adversary. This being isn't for anything, he's just anti-everything God is for, constantly working to drag God's good world right back into chaos. And the story of this spiritual rebellion unfolds in a few key stages. It kicks off at that snake in the Garden of Eden. It continues with a group of Elohim called the sons of God back in Genesis chapter 6. And then that rebellion is mirrored by human rebellion at Babylon. And the result of all this? The book of Deuteronomy actually says God handed the nations over to be influenced by these rebel spiritual powers. And this is where the idea of demons comes into play. The biblical authors saw these lesser, rebellious spiritual beings as the forces that were animating corrupt human systems. So when the prophets looked at the violent, evil empires of their day, they saw more than just bad human choices. They saw spiritual powers, these idols of money, sex, and military might, corrupting humanity from behind the scenes. Okay, I know. This whole cosmic conflict thing is a pretty complex, maybe even strange worldview. So why does any of this matter? Well, because understanding this spiritual backdrop is absolutely the key to reading the Bible the way its original authors intended for it to be read. They just assumed their readers were already in on this whole story. We have to remember the Bible isn't just one book, it's a whole library of different types of writing. You've got gripping narratives, you've got beautiful poetry, and you have what's called prose discourse, speeches, letters, and laws. This is really sophisticated ancient literature, and it doesn't always spell things out for us the way we might expect it to. And that's on purpose. The Bible is what you might call meditation literature. All of its ambiguities and puzzles, they aren't flaws in the text, they're invitations. They're designed to make you slow down, to read carefully, and to basically embark on a lifetime of discovery, making new connections across this whole collection of books. And that all leads to this final, really profound idea. The biblical writers wanted you to see this huge cosmic story of heaven and earth, of messengers and rebels, not just as old information, but as the story of your world. And as you engage with it, as you let one part of the text shed light on another, something remarkable happens. The story begins to shape how you see your own life. The Bible doesn't just get read, it starts to read you.
Thanks for watching the Bible Sense channel, making Bible sense of the scriptures line upon line, precept upon precept. Like and subscribe for more.